I'm going to try and be as condensed as possible in this review. As the title says, Incursion Red River could be worth it, but it isn't right now. Whilst the core shooting mechanics are good and show great potential for future iteration, the toolset you get with the game right now is incredibly lacking. As a disclosure, this game's closest comparison and competitor is Escape from Tarkov, and as such I'll be basing a large amount of the comparisons against it, as Tarkov is the top dog on the market. Incursion Red River is an early access extraction shooter. The unique selling point of this game is in both its setting being in modern day Vietnam, and as such being accompanied by modern day weapons, and the fact that it's purely PvE, widely discussed as Tarkov but PvE, or more specifically, SPT but co-op. Incursion Red River is trying to be a Tarkov-style extraction shooter without all of the pros and cons that come with a PvPvE game. And unfortunately, in my opinion, Incursion wears its influences too heavily on its sleeve, as well as lacking any serious content that would justify its Steam Early Access release. I love games that have a fun core and show potential for future gameplay, but in my opinion, this game isn't much more than a tech demo of what it could be in a few years, compared to a solid foundation that benefits from iteration. Starting off with systems. Akin to Tarkov, you have a hideout, except this is now the main port of call before going out on missions. Unlike Tarkov's mobile game side that benefits the main game, this is the only way to manage your stash, browse the trader, and accept missions. The stash functions similarly to the Tarkov stash. Whilst not as big as even a standard account for Tarkov, it all functions like you'd expect, bag stacking included. The light difference here is filters at the top. You gain the equivalent of Tarkov storage cases on the right hand side for each section. Here you can store materials of the specific filter type as mentioned on the top. Whilst they start small, each tier can be upgraded with a combination of player cache and faction reputation. Upgrades are either making a smaller one bigger by upgrading its tier, or by buying a whole separate one that starts at the same level as the first, meaning to get the most out of each space, you'll be pumping spare cash into each. I'd like to take a moment to discuss one of my biggest initial moments in this game. When I walked up to the stash box after the initial tutorial message, I genuinely said, really guys? The text font, the coloration in the font keywords, even the iconography of this interaction symbol, it's just ready or not. Like, not in a way that's an homage or an inspiration, they took this shit beat for beat, and I really hope they plan to change it sooner rather than later, because this is a bit disappointing when combined with our next point. Once in the stash, the cubic or Tetris inventory style is immediately familiar to many people from other games they've played, putting containers and bags into other containers for a multi-dimensional game of Tetris. Sure, easy, but then I double-clicked on a weapon to inspect it. I know, this is a game that's just in alpha, but if you're willing to put a price tag on it, then you should be willing to have this product criticised. And there's a difference between wearing your influences on your sleeve and just walking about in their clothes. Once you've gotten your gear set up, you can head over to the terminal and find some quests to do. You've got your inbox for faction greetings, status messages, and quest failed or pass notifications. Simple stuff. The job board shows contracts and challenges. Contracts are the actual missions, which you only hold and track one of at a time. I already got annoyed at COD DMZ's limiting you to 3 tracked missions, compared to Tarkov's unlimited, so this felt incredibly abrasive only having one. Challenges, on the other hand, you can track up to 3 at a time, and they're randomly generated. Kill X with Y, extract X amount of times, sell X item to a trader. Generic, boring, and seen so many times before. But the actual content of the main missions right now, it's one of 4. Place tracking bugs, place bombs, or place jammers. Or to shake it up, you have to go find an item in the map, and then place it somewhere else in the map. Oh, this is all incredibly simplistic and repetitive. But surely the combat saves it, right? The combat in PvE is what separates this game from its competitors. Well, not exactly, because the enemy AI is fucking stupid. Like, brain damage. You'll spawn, grab the items you need to place for your quest. If they actually spawn in, that is, then you head over to your mission area, slowly creep through the area, watching for enemies. You spot one behind some cover, but are then surprised by another. You shoot the surprise enemy, and then the other one doesn't care. They just don't. Like, seriously, they don't care that some guy is firing bullets in their direction, until one eventually hits in his tiny little bitty surprise box, and then suddenly he's alert. This is really disappointing. Combined with the solo experience of only seeing about max 2 or 3 enemies at a time, the flow of the combat is lacking in itself. You can go to one of the big points of interest for a mission, search the whole area, and find about 5 enemies in total. I will say that the character controller is good. Aesthetically, the movement and hand positioning on guns is all crisp. The guns mostly feel good to use, and the weapon customization is nice, although missing a Tarkov-style modding menu. Your jump height is incredibly low, so without being able to mantle over stuff, don't expect to be able to navigate over shin-high rocks. Stamina's fine, and it didn't feel like a hindrance, although weight didn't seem to be a factor right now, as I was able to assume the skin of any enemies I killed, and stack bag after bag into each other. You gotta love an endless bag stack. The game does look quite nice. Even with DLSS on to improve performance, it's pretty good when going through the jungle. Having the branches move and adjust as you go past them feels like a nice touch. But when you get into buildings, that's when some of the prefab assets start to feel a little bit rough, clashing styles or items placed in weird ways that feels akin to a Gmod map. Performance is a bit rough at the moment, but 1, it's early, and 2, as a Tarkov player, I think we're just cursed to have a genre that runs like ass. Honestly though, I feel bad saying this negative opinion on the game. It does really feel like the devs are trying and want to make a good game, but this is not a product that should have a price tag. You would find more fulfilling gameplay loops in those Gmod realism mods than you would in this. The performance is middling, the map is pretty yet hollow, the gunplay is decent for the most part, but the enemies are stupid as shit. And the question progression system is boring and not fleshed out. I don't recommend buying this. I'm not going to refund my copy as I do want to see where this game goes, and I'd like to hope it's somewhere good. But right now, wait a year or so, and see where it goes. If you want a Vietnam experience but don't mind older weaponry, play Rising Storm 2. If you want bigger scale and the possibility of mods, play the Arma 3 Prairie Fire DLC. That has some really cool big scale co-op versus AI modes that I've had a lot of fun with friends in. For now, that's all from me. Thanks for watching. And remember, Keemstar is a bald reed.